Alright, so hello and welcome to July 2023's art vlog. I have quite the stack of different sketchbooks and stuff to go through. It looks a lot more impressive than it actually is, and I've also got a couple little things. I would say overall that July has had a lot of little things and such coming together. Finding kind of seeing the fruits of my labors, if that makes sense. This handmade mini sketchbook. So I actually made this a while back, a couple months ago, and I did this front cover in June, but I forgot to film it entirely, so here it is now, better late than never. Today is July, sorry, not today. Today is August 1st, by the way, so I might struggle with some dates. I'm really trying to get on top of things because I don't want to be editing this video halfway into August and also trying to film August stuff at the same time. I did this one in June, and then this one I started in July, and I was finishing off some of my Opus paints. I actually finished them off, like all of them off this month, which felt really good, really good. But with this one in particular, I hated how it came out. You probably can't see it, but I can see is kind of the outline of what was there before. It was just in watercolor, and I normally don't go back and cover ugly paintings up with other things because I think acknowledging the ugly things is important, and moreover, it kind of ruins the chronology, but I just couldn't bear to look at it. I really couldn't. So I went over and I did it again. This is one of my characters in The Sims. I don't think I have much more to say about that. I also did these two little paintings. So I will explain more about supplies in a little bit, but I finished off the Opus paints that I've been hoping to finish off for a long time. Finished off is in quotes because I still have some left over in pans, but I finished off what was in the palette. So I bought myself a couple of Daniel Smith paints, which are lovely to work with, so I was playing around with them a little bit here, and I believe in this one too. I really quite like how this one ended up, and that's kind of the nice thing about these little mini sketchbooks, is that I end up doing things I would never expect generally from myself, and also things that I would never kind of plan out to do on a watercolor block. For this one, I might revisit it eventually, but I wanted it to be more of like a fisheye perspective. Trying to get rid of those last couple bits of paint that you have on a palette, trying to make little composition ideas. I was using acrylic gouache, and I'm 100% sure that I just mixed together whatever was left on my palette for the darker base, and then let the unblended white and blue paint mixed together for the hair. You know, I wouldn't do that regularly, and this is a way for me to let myself do that. Next up, I'm going into this Winsor Newton 25% cotton. Was this also June? I don't remember if I showed this or not. Well, at the end of June, I started planning out a little portrait to start my new sketchbook with. This was kind of not even a tester, it was just me using the same two colors. Yeah, and then the back, I was really just trying to finish off the paints at that point. This almost looks to me, I must have finished off the blues on this page and then been left trying to finish off the purple, the two reds. Well, one was a red, one was a pink, and the paint's great. Part of this is because I've been learning a lot about my tendencies when it comes to painting. I really love purple when it comes to painting, but I tend to lean very heavily towards a cool purple, like a bluer purples, rather than red leaning purples, or red or pink leaning purples. And I don't use a lot of red leaning oranges either, and I definitely don't use that much green in my painting, so but yet I really love kind of the color palette that resulted. This is just trying to use up more of those paints, and I think this must have been one of the last couple things. I want to say this was done with Daniel Smith's. Yeah, it must have been, because this looks like the Naples Yellow. More color swatching. I know this is the Cobalt Teal Blue. That's the Anthraquinoid Blue. I think these ones are still the Opus. It's kind of mix and match. Yeah, because I must have done some of those like swatches out of order, because this was kind of the first thing that I painted with the Daniel Smiths. I'll talk about those, I'll finish off these couple things and then I'll talk about them. But the colors that I ended up getting are Naples, oh, this is the wrong color, hold on. I pulled out the wrong color by accident. The one that I had there was Naples Yellow Medium, but the one I got in July was Naples Yellow. I also got Phthalo Blue Green shade and Anthraquinoid Red. I'm really enjoying using these. I'll talk about them more in a sec, but yeah, this was kind of the first painting I did with them. Just playing around a bit and more swatches. The Naples Yellow is, I'm surprisingly quite a big fan of it, and I did like a color sheet of all my Daniel Smiths so far. How do I explain this? I feel like I use a lot of red and yellows in my paintings, specifically because those are kind of the most essential ones for skin tones, but I'm really lacking in my red and yellow Daniel Smiths, because somehow I've ended up with more blue ones, and I really don't feel like I use blue that often. It's just that I think that there are a lot of like red and yellow selections from across different watercolor brands that I've encountered are kind of lacking. They really didn't have that many single pigment yellows that appeal to me personally, and obviously different painters will have their preferences. I don't use a lot of like lemon yellows, nor do I use a lot of like opaque colors really. So yeah, that's, you know, obviously I don't expect to stick with one brand for the rest of my life, but it was an interesting observation to make. This was with gouache. I think I started off in watercolor. And probably hated how it came out and started using gouache over it, because that seems to be a repeating incident for July. So this is my new sketchbook for July. This is the Strathmore, I want to say it's the watercolor journal. I don't know entirely off the top of my head. It is 8.5 by 11 and it's got a beautiful cover. So I want to treat this one a little bit more nicely. It's not that I'm like throwing my sketchbooks across the room. I just want to really actively try to make every page intentional, and to make really work on compositions and allowing myself blank spaces, and yeah, just trying to tackle those intentions. So I did this beginning of July. This page, this one here, was a very early tester for this guy, and I knew I wanted to use those specific colors. I knew very roughly what I wanted the like composition to be, and I don't love 100% how it turned out. I actually, look at this now, I feel like it would have been better to do in gouache, but maybe I'm just on a gouache kick these days. I will say that I really love how the light purple, light pink background turned out, because usually it's really difficult for me to keep things that like light and delicate, but it was fun. And then actually just, well, 2 days ago, I finished this. I started this off in watercolor, and unfortunately I started off with like the wrong undertones, because like it was just too light, if that makes sense, because the way that I've kind of taught myself to paint darker skin is like, it very much relies heavily on that first base, which I guess is true for any type of watercolor painting. But when I went back to try and correct it with a darker layer, it didn't quite look what I wanted it to look like. It looked a lot more patchy, and it was hard to add in shadows after that, because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, so I got kind of frustrated. So I pulled out the gouache and some flat brushes, and I think I started off like mixing a bit of just white gouache in with some of the watercolors I was using, and it delved into a full-on like gouache portrait, which I don't mind for right now. It was really fun to go back and use some flat brushes because I feel like they're so much more compatible with gouache in my head than with gouache and like round brushes for whatever reason. Probably because I'm trying to loosen up and get used to the brush marks and whatnot that you can get with flat brushes. And I suppose they just show up better in opaque mediums or even just like thicker mediums that won't bleed together. I do think I will revisit this this reference picture in a while because I really love it. I think I've had this saved on my computer or for like, I want to say like 4 or 5 years now, and it's always been like there in the back of my head to come back to and do a little portrait of because I really like it. Yeah, that's the end of that sentence. I think one of my initial goals for this was to just try and use the Daniel Smiths for a full portrait, and you can see it probably at the base there. It's a lot lighter because I left in the initial watercolor work that I did. And yeah, it's been weirder than I expected to kind of transition back to using a different like brand. I'll maybe chat a little bit about like supplies and stuff. Oh God. It looks so much more chaotic than it is, I promise you. So I'll start with the gouache stuff. So in terms of gouache, I've been working on a bunch of different gouache things, so I haven't bothered to clean out this right now. I've cleaned it a couple times throughout the month or whatever, but right now I feel like I want to keep all these colors for now, especially the skin tones. But the wells themselves, they were starting to feel like really contaminated and frustrating to work with, so I sprayed them down. I used a palette knife to get out what I could, and I chucked them in here. It's funny because when you try it, it comes off entirely. I'll have to wet that again. It's just nice for me to kind of clean things and reset my mind. It works in tandem for me. Like I was doing that this morning. I just felt super disorganized, so I just went and rearranged my desk. And it helped me a lot. But that's what this is about. I didn't get any new gouache or anything. I did get a new acrylic gouache a couple months back, but I don't even remember if I mentioned that or not. It was one of these two, but I can't actually remember which one. Maybe if you look at my swatch book. Yeah, it must have been okay, yeah, it's this one because it's not here in this like swatch chart that I made. So, on to supplies. Like I mentioned, I finished off what was left in my like Opus paint palette. Those used to be housed in here. And because I finished it off, I moved the colors that were in here. It was just little dots. I moved them into this, so what remains, they're sad little dots. This swatch sheet isn't entirely accurate because I didn't bother cleaning off the paint before I did it because I don't like use them that frequently. Yeah, I would like to put together like a cross-brand palette at some point. I just don't actually have that many brands of watercolors, nor do I have like current plans to do that to get more in the future. Oh my gosh, I need to put that back. Excuse me. And then, so what's in here are actually a few months back I poured in what was left in my Opus tubes. I poured them in here so that I would be able to go back to them if I wanted to, but that I could more easily kind of focus on just clearing up the palette and not stress about what's left in the tubes. And I actually, since then, I already have gone back to use them. I think for one of those paintings back there, I went back and I dipped into the blue because I was trying to finish off the other paints, but I really wanted to use the blue for a bit. So yeah, I really love this blue actually. These are here and I'm thinking if I ever go traveling, I might bring these with me. If not, like this palette of Daniel Smith's. But onto the Daniel Smith's. So, I got 3 new colors. I got, like I said, Naples Yellow, which I think it's a 3 pigment mix. PB, this is Phthalo Blue Green shade, which is 1 pigment, and then Anthraquinoid Red, which is also a pigment. I intended originally for my Daniel Smith kind of collection to all be single pigment paints, just so I could work with them and get used to them. So I didn't realize until after I had bought it that Naples Yellow was a 3 pigment blend. But it was a bit of a happy accident because I really love it right now. Everything just kind of comes out a little like dreamier, a little hazy and soft. It's really pretty, and I don't regret it. It wasn't an active choice to delve into multi-pigment blends, but it is what it is, and I no mistakes have been made, really. This is a side note. I bought this, I don't know why, but I like it. It's very pretty. I haven't used it yet, but I surely will eventually. So I went and I did a little bit of rearranging, as you saw. So I moved the little dots that were in this palette before to that other palette I showed, and I got to some palette setup, which was fun. I recorded a little bit of it. This fucker made a mess. All is well. I also did like a little metal palette. I updated this. So this guy, which is, I want to say Quin Red. This used to be in a full palette, and then as did this one, which is transparent pyrrole orange. That also used to be in a full pan. So I put both of those into half pans. They're a little mucky right now because I was lazy. Then I put Anthraquinoid Red in a full pan and Phthalo Blue in a half, as well as Naples Yellow in a half. When I first started looking into Daniel Smith's, I wanted Quin Red to be my main mixing red, but I kind of found that it's a bit too heavily pink leaning for me. Similarly, the Anthraquinoid Red, it's also like a little bit too pink leaning for my taste. I'll see if I can pull out some swatches, actually. So I've pulled out some swatches from times beyond. This is the Quin Rose that I first started using. This is the Van Gogh one. Then there's also the Madder Lake Deep, and partially because these are the ones that I kind of started off with, I like these two a lot, and my preference is to lean heavily towards them. But Van Gogh paints are student grade, and I was looking to get a bit of an upgrade. So then this is Rose Madder. This is an Opus paint, one of the ones that is now in this pink palette. And I like the colors of these, but something about, I guess it would be the formula. Something just doesn't click 100% with me, the formula at least. And it's hard for me to describe it. This is irrelevant. And then looking into some of these swatches. So this is Quin Red by Daniel Smith, I believe. Either that or it's the Rose Madder. No, this is the Quin Red. This is Anthraquinoid Red, also Daniel Smith. And then this is the Madder Lake Deep from Van Gogh. So you can see like the Anthraquinoid Red, obviously it's not heavily pink leaning, but it definitely is more pink leaning than the Madder Lake Deep. So I'm looking into like early stages of researching which like red shade that Daniel Smith has that's a little bit more similar to this, a bit less pink leaning, because I want to expand my range of reds, and I really miss using this color, as well as a Quin Red that's more like violet leaning. So all that to say, this palette is not, permanent, but I'm also not looking to change it like right this minute. So I'll clean this up and then I'll pop over to the rest of the sketchbooks because I felt like this tangent fit in this portion. I got distracted. I was looking at this and I'm like, I want to clean this up and I want to use this. What should I do? And then I realized I should just make some swatch cards. But that's not for right now. That'll be for August. This is the Hanamule cold press. I've had this, sorry, not cold press. This is the rough press. I have had this for quite a while. I might actually check and see when I started it. May 2022, so year and a half-ish. I've slowly been working through it. I didn't really have any concrete like desire to finish it, but I did. I don't know if I showed these in June's like sketchbook tour. I don't remember that far back. This was also in June, but these are from July. Part of it was me just trying to force myself to work through a couple of the studies that I had kind of at the back of my mind and in my reference folder. And part of it was also just using up some extra gouache that I had on my palette, and because I was cleaning it out. So like, for example, I very distinctly remember I got this color off of my like lemon yellow. This is clearly a lime shade. So that's the extent to which it was contaminated. I don't have much else to say. I love how this one turned out, especially like the lime green highlight on the lips. So I loved it. And then this, I don't have any much to say here. I've got 2 Opus paints that are separate from the rest of them because way back when I first got them, they just didn't really click with me, so I use them as for undertones when I'm painting gouache stuff now, and I was just wanted to fill out this page, and that's the last page in this little wire-bound sketchbook. I don't know if this is considered a sketchbook, but I don't care to think further about it. Next up, in July I also got this smaller watercolor block at the same time that I got the Daniel Smith paints. This is just a 7x10 Stonehenge cold press. It's the same as my bigger block, and I've only done 1 page in it so far. Obviously it's a block, so it's intended more for like completed pieces, but I kind of just wanted to play around a little. I was planning to do a bunch of little mini portraits, and then I got a little bit carried away, but I really quite like how all of these turned out separately, which is funny. I especially like this one. And then next up is the large sketchbook. Here's the start of July stuff. It might be a little cut off some on the top and the bottom, but that's fine. I think I showed these in my June video, but I've been playing a lot more of The Sims, and these are a couple of my kiddos. I've been enjoying playing with them. I don't have that much to say about most of the stuff here, I think. Again, I've been on and off, just feeling a little iffy about drawing faces and sketching. I'm just trying to kind of get back into more of a groove of it and let myself be creative and comfortable while also trying to make progress. I actually think part of the issue is because I've been trying to finish off a bunch of old like art supplies, I think it's limited how I'm, it limits the creative process in that it's not like empowering me to do the best that I can do, if that makes sense. These are supplies that I have to kind of actively think about and consciously use, so there is a little bit of disruption to the flow of creativity. I hope that is articulate enough. That said, it's not to say that it hasn't done well for my creativity. For example, like further back, you can get these beautiful, beautiful broad marks with these with the darker grade or darker, like heavier grade pencils, and that's not something that I can achieve with a simple like mechanical pencil. So I can get out some of these ideas and silhouettes in a lot more of a efficient way, and I think I will come into sort of a middle ground, right, of what is working, what works, what doesn't, and eventually I will be able to like eliminate as many of the distractions as possible. I might actually go back for a bit. A couple of these were concepts. This one, I had a really vivid dream about like this frozen lake and traveling. This was a while back. Yeah, so I just kind of sketched them out because I've been really meaning to kind of get back into that habit of trying to draw environments. And then this one, hold on, there was one further back too. Oh my gosh. Brain. This one was the sketch for the gouache portrait that I did in June. Yeah. This one, this was kind of the concept of, there's the phrase, welcome to the abyss. And for some reason, it got me thinking about, you know, it's kind of a cyberpunk underground bar type thing, underground nightclub. And I kind of just went with it. And this is about as far as I got, but I think it was fun to just delve into that sort of concept for a little bit. Oh yeah, I keep flipping back and forth, I'm so sorry. What was more fun for me at that time, for some reason, was doing this little logo, so yeah. I've done a lot of like nature melded girlies, lots of doodles of characters like that in recent times. This was just with the brush pen, also with the brush pen. Ooh, I'm looking at this now, her nose is like so high up her head, her face, sorry. Brush marks. Oh, my mistake, it's the like dark gray one, not the pocket brush pen. I don't think it makes a bit of any visual difference. Here, I didn't do too much of like sketching after this, but I was really trying to slow down with this one. In one of the story settings that I have, there's like, you know, a like space exploration company, and obviously that company would have had a founder anyways, and this is, in my head, this is her. She's probably never gonna be in the story because this is generations after she would have been alive, but it was fun to kind of doodle it out. Oh, and these like metallic pens, I really want to use them more because they're really satisfying to use. Doing more line work, silhouette things. This was from a reference image. I'm pretty sure I've had this reference image saved for ages, and I've never done much with it. Trying to kind of get into a bit of a habit with full bodies, and here were some figure studies. Got a couple. Not sure. Oh, good amount. And yeah, I must have stopped here actually, because that was definitely original stuff. Yeah. These were pretty recent. Tried to do a few silhouettes. Something about this I like, and I like to give pieces titles if they come to me in that moment. So this one's called The Widow, and that's not for anyone else, that's just for me if I ever want to come back to the concept. I actually have an entire this was from reference, I think. I didn't end up looking at the reference, but you know, I tried. I have an entire document in my OneNote of just like one-liners and titles of whatever it would be, just different names and titles. So maybe it would be chapter titles or book titles or like lyrics or poems. Just, I think it's very good for me to write down those ideas when I have them, especially because my memory sucks as of late. So this is a portrait I've been working on for a friend of mine. I have a couple of progress shots of it. I'm hoping to finish it sometime this week. Hopefully I get a chance to work on it later today, but it is hot and it is the afternoon and I want to read. So we'll see if that comes into fruition, but it's definitely getting there. There was a point where I had really, really doubted that I could make it out of the pit I buried myself in. I fucking hate gouache so much. Because when I did like the not watercolor, it's all been wash, but when I did the first initial wash, it looked really, really good, but I knew I'd have to put more paint on to make it opaque because it's gouache and I wanted to get it to be opaque eventually. So, you know, it's kind of hard to look at this now and know that it looked better before, but, you know, the only direction that is worth looking at right now is forward. So I know it'll get there eventually. I'm just a little stressed about it, but I'm hoping to finish it sometime this week. And I will keep you updated if I can. So that's kind of it for now for July. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.